we're going to talk a little bit about the drawing tools available to you in Illustrator today. The pen tool is the best place to start, and you can type P or just go right to it and click. Illustrator works on a series of lines, and you can have curved lines or you can have cornered lines, straight lines, angled lines, anything you want. So I'm going to start with my pen tool by clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking, clicking. And notice when I get to the end of the line, if I hover over where it would close that path, it gives me that little donut shape there. That shows that that will now close that path. If I don't want that extra point, I can click on the pen tool, go down to delete an anchor point. I can also add more anchor points as well. Or I can just touch my negative or my minus and click on that point, and that will go away. If I want to edit this, I can use the second selector tool up here, which is the direct selection tool, and I can click right on one point. Notice that point is dark and these are open or light, so I can move that now. If I would like to put a curved line, a rounded corner on here, when I click on just one or two of these corner points, notice I get this little target inside. If I click and drag, that will make those rounded corners. If I want to do just one, I can do just one. Or if I go back to my selection tool, this will allow me, go back to our selection tool, and this will allow me to increase or decrease the entire piece. So notice how I'm increasing and decreasing this by grabbing the corner. When I hover over the corner, the double arrows appear. That shows me that I can increase or decrease or scale this. Now if I hold my Shift key down, it will maintain the same proportions, and that's helpful. Okay, so if I want to fill this with a different color instead of having a stroke, over here this shows the fill is white and the stroke, or the outline, is black. I can switch these if I would like, so now I have a white outline and a black fill. I can also go to my control bar here. If you don't see this here, just go to Window, Control, and that will bring this up. You can also use the palettes over here. I tend to really like the control bar up here, so I use that quite often. So let's give it a different fill. Let's go with blue, and we can go with a stroke that is none, and that just gives us a basic fill. Or if we want, we can use a different color fill, and we can increase the size of that stroke. Now notice that the rounded corner ends have rounded corners, and the stroke, this one is straight. If I wanted to round this as well, I can go into my stroke right here, and it allows me to have my corners rounded instead of square. And that will put a little bit of a rounded piece on here. Let's go back to our pen tool, and we can also draw lines that are curved. And instead of just clicking like we clicked before, we can click and drag. And when we click and drag, it gives us a set of handles. And those handles will stay with that point so that they will allow us to curve it. So now I click and drag, and now I'm drawing a curved line. I can go in really any direction I want. And when I loop back around, I get the same little donut when I hover over the spot where I'm going to close that path. Going back to my direct select tool, I can click on these and I can adjust them. Notice here I don't have a handle over here. If I go back to the pen tool, click and hold, I can go down to the anchor point tool, click again and drag out, and it will give me a double handle. Now again with my direct select, I can go in here and edit this. I can move the points around individually, move the handles around, and this allows me to make my curves smoother and adjust the path if I want to as well. Notice when I started drawing this shape, because I had defined the fill and the stroke for this shape, it kept it and it let me draw with that. I can still change this if I want. If I want to click on this with my selection tool, and this one maybe I'll make orange with a path that's a little bit darker orange. With my selection tool, I can click on the entire path and move it. Move this one as well to make room for a different path. So back to my pen tool. Sometimes you just want a path. So I can click any type of path that I want. Now notice that I don't like the way the fill is starting from the beginning and the end. So I'm going to remove that fill. I can click over here and do none. And then I just have a path. If I go to my direct select tool, I can adjust this just like I did before. It's a nice smooth path. Now I do like that everything is rounded on the corners here, on the curves here, but notice the ends don't look so great. They're kind of cut off. Well, if you remember when we were in our path, up here, the stroke palette box, right above rounding corners, I can also round over the caps. So if I round this over, watch the cap right here, those will now round over, and that will look like a nicer, smoother end cap. So anytime I'm drawing for a logo, I'll start with a shape like this, or a shape like this, or a line like this, and that will help me to begin to draw the brand mark for my logo. If I'm just not sure what to draw or how that should look, I can always place a scan of my sketch in here. Here I have a little scan that I did of, I wanted to draw something for an X-ray to show this for a children's book. So if you zoom in, I have a pencil sketch here. So I can put this on its own layer, or better yet, I'll just leave it on the layer it's on. Click down here to create a new layer, and on this layer I'm going to put this as X-ray, or name this as X-ray line art. So now I can turn this layer off, and you'll see that everything on that layer goes away. It's not visible. But I'm going to be drawing on my X-ray line art. So back to my pen tool. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And I want to start drawing these bones. So I'll start with my pen tool. I'm going to set my fill to be like a light blue and my stroke to be none. That way when I start to draw this, I'll see where it's filling in and I can tell where I've drawn. So I'm going to start over here, and I'll simply trace my own line work, kind of using my best judgment to put my curves, my handles, and my points where I think they will fit best. And then I'll join that. So now I have one section of that X-ray done of the bone. Now, I won't draw the whole thing for our tutorial, but I'm going to go up here under Rectangle tool. I'm going to choose a rounded corner rectangle. I'm going to click and drag, and you'll see that this will draw a rounded corner rectangle that looks kind of like my screen. Now, if I don't really like the rounded corner radius, I'll just click and move this up. Notice that this is different from before. Because I drew a rectangle, If I grab one, all of them will change in size. Now, going into my layers, my rectangle layer is above my bone layer, so I'm going to move that down below just by dragging it. And on this bone layer, I'm going to click on that bone and I'm going to make that white. And you can see that I have the start of my drawing. And if I make this black, now you start to see that the bone is showing up white over top of the black. And I can continue to draw the rest of the hand and I'll have what looks like an X-ray. So that's a brief introduction into your drawing tools. When you start working on your logo or even in your header for your email marketing for this class, you'll want to start to draw things, and the pen tool is the best place to start. Thank you.